down that muddy lane. So this is the High Street and Main Street, and that's that back lane.
That's the back lane, lovely.
Yeah. Which also joins into the open fields. So any stock could be taken out of there and turned on as fallows or anything. And the older properties are all gable end onto the village street like this. And if you notice the fork in the road, well, this is how the farmsteads have formed into these square rectangle around the crew yard. But these little crofts and closes, tops, see where that number 4 is there?
Yes.
If you look in, this is 1980, if you look in 1635, there's the fork in the road, look.
Yes. Oh yeah.
The road comes down and down there, the church is there, and that's those little bends in the hedgerows, look. There.
Oh yeah.
That little dog leg there existed in 1635 here.
Yeah. Wow.
So, you know, and that's the main street and that's the back lane. That's where we stood there. Look.
And the Motte Bailey is.
The Motte Bailey is up there.
Right there.
In 1635, the Motte Bailey had gone, but the manor house was built in the grounds, and it's all set out with all the concentric circles of trees and different things.
Somebody showed me a map just like before then, like before the whole, like even earlier, like the Land Drainage Act and the way that land it created a whole different system of landscape because of having to drain the land to make it for arable fields, but before then it was...
Yeah, well see these strips, when we stood on the Motte there, we looked straight up that sick.
Yeah.
And we could see the strips going off up this way, and these coming off this way, and these coming off this way. But now, that field that we were looking at is probably only about that area.
Right.
Because there's two subtle changes. They built the outlying farms. There's Westwood Common Farm, Broccolo, Napenny, Primrose, Copthorne, and they took a fair old chunk out of on the outskirts of the open field. So we've had this shrinkage back in because they were too far to travel to. These black areas, by the way, the woodland. When we stood there, I pointed the woodland out there, over there, and this was up behind what we could see behind the church.
We were curious to know what the white square is. Is that
this is on sheepskin or some sort of animal skin.
It was cut out.
I think that's the piece that must have just fell out or been spliced in. Or something. It's a bit of the map that's lost. It's just not there. When they get that rectangle out there, that bit's not.
So who made this map? What was the purpose of the map?
When the Lord of the Manor inherited the estate, this would have been a very expensive. In the maps of the held by the country, the Bodleian Library, this is one of the top 10. This is in the top 10 most important maps held in the country, apparently.
Right.
And it would have been as a. It'd been up in his manor house as a statement to I can afford to have a very serious map made.
So I've seen one of these for Anchorwick running like this.
Mark
No
Pierce.
one there.
He was an eminent map producer, and the accuracy of it is incredible. To say the equipment they've got, somebody came from. There's a special library in London that keeps a load of maps, and he came up to look at the estate because he knew the map better than I do, but he wanted to look at the landscape, and he said this would have probably took 20-30 people well over a year to have produced.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because not only is there there's two terriers, 2 bucks, like this thick.
Yeah.
And every one of these, although you can't see the numbers, well you can just see the number there. They're all surveyed, it's recorded who they belong to, how big they were, what the occupation of the person was. There's loads of references and loads of references to the properties.
So he wanted to work out basically how much money he could get this, maybe like by putting the names and like working out.
Yeah, he'd want to know who his tenants were, how much land they owned, but from that we can also get the distribution. So if we look in the terriers, we know that, say the person, Wolfit or somebody owned that one, or farmed that one, that one, that one, that one and that one. Yeah, there's 2,600 strips on that map.
Tell you right, because when I was at my parents from Bangladesh.
We're down to 185 now.
Oh, that's a big
so you can see how they're amalgamated.
Yeah, my still has, because I used to walk, because my dad died when I was younger, and my uncles would take me and go, so your dad owned this bit of land and walk me miles away, and he owned that bit of land. I was like, why did you have this land on like miles away from each other?
But
Now
you-
it makes more sense.
You see, this is the centre of the parish, and they cleared land away from the village, and that's why this ancient woodland's still where it is as it was when it was forest, probably. And then this is Neasel village, which expanded the same from the centre. This map covers Laxton and Neasel, so
Okay.
this is another village that developed the same. And in Neasel now, there is no one living in the village that gets any. There's no farms left in the village. They're all converted into houses, and there's no farm worker lives in there. So there's nobody in that village at all gets any living from agriculture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's totally lost its agricultural identity altogether.
Whereas that's not the same for your...
No, well, Laxton's still got the working
Yeah,
farms in, but
yeah.
how long it's going to remain like that is another thing.
So these woodlands here, is there any rights that you've got within this, for this woodland?
No, I'll say the only reference I can give you to any woodland is one of the older tenants has said that on Bollum Back, which is one of these areas somewhere, he has a right to take wood off up to a certain diameter, 4 inches or something,
Okay.
and then it's deemed as a tree,
Okay.
and then it's the landlord's property.
Okay.
But any sort of small firewood, brushwood, faggots, or
Yeah.
what they could use coppice stuff for hurdle
Yeah.
making, he's got a right to take that.
Yeah.
But when it gets above a certain diameter,
Yeah.
he's not allowed to touch it.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can tell you about woodland. But Mike Jackson did a bit of research on this woodland, which doesn't come as far up as this now, and it was farmed in several blocks. It was more like coppiced woodland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they'd coppice a certain block, and then they wouldn't touch it again for another 8 to 10 years. So
Really?
they managed it in like a 10-year cycle.
Did they? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And everybody thinks of woodlands are, all big oak trees or big ash trees, but they weren't. They're often
Coppice.
coppice,
Yeah.
nut sticks and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
because the wood they wanted was not for building ships or houses, it was for building sheep hurdles and
Wood is
putting
not
in
timber,
fires.
right? I mean, the culture of woodmanship is a completely different thing if you want wands or something. You don't want, they're not structural.
Or chairs.
Yeah.
Chairs, baskets.
But the other interesting thing about this map is that we've actually got loads of illustrations. There's the hawk in there on horseback for partridges. So it's not only, you can't, this is a terrible copy.
It's a big disappointment.
see
I thought it was going to be a really, the
the
digital copy online is much better.
Yeah, the original one is beautiful.
Yeah.
All these colours, the bright reds and bright blues and bright greens. Yeah,
So you
yeah
see,
this looks like
you can see women,
stag hunting.
reapers.
Stag hunting. That's stag hunting there. There's the stag look.
Oh, really?
There's the hounds running after it.
Yeah.
The ploughing there.
Here's a hay wagon.
Hay wagon. The
This might be where
moffrey.
there's women. And
There's a
it's in
moffrey.
this one.
Okay.
The Moffrey.
Moffrey. There's
What's
moffrey
the
there.
How do they spell that in the...
I've no idea.
What's that? Loved.
Lover's Lane.
Love and close.
Yeah, Looking close, yeah, that's Double Fields. There's not many names on it, but I say every one you look at has got a number on it, which
Yeah.
I can hardly see. They're all in that.
But
the other,
the one online, you're right, is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the one in Bodley, the original.
yeah, they won't get it out now.
Won't they?
No. Our history group's got special provision, but they only got us that rectangle out there. The
Right.
terriers were out, but they only got one square out.
I
And
copied
it-
them from the Orwin book, there's the
Yeah,
envelope.
they've got tracings in there.
Yeah,
They've got a little...
and so they've got four of them,
They're tracings
Yes,
of
they
the
are.
original map.
Yeah.
But the two subtle things that's happened, from 1635 there was all these strips, hundreds of them, thousands of them, and now we're down to severely shrunken open fields. This is Westfield, Millfield, Southfield, so they follow that 3-year cycle, fallow, wheat, second cereal, round and round. But they built the outlying farms, so we've had shrinkage back, so all these strips around the outside, and this summer grazing land is all being lost. So they took, I don't know, there's 5 farms, that's probably 200, they probably took 1,000 acres worth of land from around the outside of the estate. But because they wanted more, these strips here come quite close to the farms. I mean, those crops have stopped fairly small there, but at the bottom farm where I am down here, I'm only a small strip on this map, but I've got 25 acres now at the back. So there was the enclosures added more homestead. They made all the homesteads bigger. So we tend to have an area in the middle of the village that's like all permanent grassland now.
I see.
So they enclosed the inner part and they enclosed the outer part, so the fields shrank back to about 600 acres worth now. So that's how this village has changed from 1635 to now. The strips have been amalgamated, they've shrunk back, and there's been internal enclosure to give the crops and things more. And then there was some enclosure up here on Acre Edge, because they started growing mangels and turnips and things like that. They couldn't grow it in the three-year rotation of the open fields. So
Okay.
they took something out of the open fields rotation where they could grow root crops.
Okay.
Is there,
And they chose the area because it's got a really good, that area there is all split off into strips or areas of land that's not in open field rule, but it's got the best access back to the village and it's some of the kindest soil. So they chose a nice little spot to do it.
Stuart?
Have you got 6 on there? As long as you've got 6.
Yes, I've got 6.
Yeah. 4 is 2. 2 and 4.
2, 2 and 2.
Yeah, lovely.
And we say it's
Day of 4 hours, that's all.
Stuart Rose is a brilliant and generous teacher guide, outstanding. Walking, talking, tour of box strips, etc. 4 hours.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And social and environmental, I've ticked more than one because we're about
half an hour.
Oh, I better.
It's-
Okay.
This is interesting.
Right.
The natural environment, food farming, and a curriculum.
No. They're
2 hours
going
or more.
about.
Yes, sign. Shall I? Agreement holder.
Okay.
Is that for me?